Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, in fact.
Well, Honourable Annette King, in fact.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I stand to speak to the next local government bill introduced by this government, and to say that the Labor Party will support this bill in its first reading and to the Select Committee. That is not to say, Minister, that we don't have some concerns about the bill itself, but we would like the public to have a say on the bill in the democratic way that they should. So we will be looking, first of all, to make sure that a bill that is introduced in December, just before Christmas, has a considerable length of time for people to make submissions to it. Because we all know that bills that come in this late in the year, there have been times when they have, the select committees have required submissions to be made over the Christmas-New Year period. That is incredibly difficult for New Zealanders who save their holidays for this time of year, and they don't actually want to sit at the beach writing out a submission on a local government bill. So although I'm sure Mr. Williamson did that in his spare time, I think most New Zealanders want to have a barbie and a beer rather than to be writing out submissions. So I say to the Minister that I hope that there is going to be considerable time given for submissions to be made on this bill. The next point I would make is that is the government going to listen to the submissions? Because the Minister made a rather bad start in his presentation today when he complimented the Honourable Nick Smith for his better local government legislation and his approach to local government. Well, Minister, you may well have been asleep when Nick Smith made his speeches and when he introduced his better local government, because his handling of it was disastrous. It was the first part of the major changes. Part one of better local government was disastrously handled. In fact, the regulatory impact statement that went with the first part of these changes was one of the worst I have ever seen. In fact, it said that there was no justification for most of the changes that the government wanted to make. And then the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, they did a very good piece as well, and said they could see no justification for change. We were told then by Minister Nick Smith that you didn't have to believe everything that NZIER said. However, of course, they put out a report last week saying how well the economy was going, and the government said, of course you must believe the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research. So they got, according to the junior minister, they got that wrong. Yes, they did get that wrong about everything being better in economic terms in New Zealand. So I have to say that we have some doubts about the consultation that will take place over this bill. Because if it's going to be like the first bill we had, absolutely no notice was taken to the many, many submissions that were made on the bill. They came from all around New Zealand, from Southland to the far north. They came from local government, they came from NGOs, they came from the community, they came from community boards. They said, do not take away the four well-beings that exist in the Act. Do not take them away. And did the government listen? No, they did not. They bowled on ahead. They brushed aside all the submissions. They said, well, too bad. We don't care what you think. We're doing what we want anyway. Take that or leave it. And so we have concerns that even if submissions are made on this bill, that in fact they won't be listened to, although it will not make any changes. So maybe the Minister would like to assure us that there is going to be some real consideration given to what local government says about this bill. Now, there are some things in this bill that I think could be potentially very positive. I think looking at the consultation that local government has to undertake and making that more transparent, more open, streamlined, some of it is very onerous. I think that could be a good change, but I'd like to hear from local government as to exactly how it would work. I note the government had several options they could have chosen when it came to local government consulting with their community. They have taken quite a flexible approach, but let's see if local government thinks that that is going to work, because at the end of the day, these bills are all about control of local government, where we've always seen local government as being very, very important in making their own decisions within a framework, within a community. And we've seen the tightening of their ability to make those decisions under a government that says that they believe in open government, that they like business and communities to get on with things. We have not seen that in local government. So I will be interested in what local government has to say about consultation. The development levies is another area. Now, we need some more information as to what the details are going to be about what development levies can be applied to. And the Minister didn't outline greater detail in that, and I assume, Minister, that is because decisions are still to be made about what development levies can be applied to by local government. And I think we need to know the detail, and as they say, the real issue will be the detail of what is being proposed. There is also in the bill some changes to the Local Government Commission. Now, these are ones that do worry me, because the Local Government Commission is not an elected organisation. They are government appointments, and while there have been some very good people on the Local Government Commission, and I have great faith in Basil Morrison, in fact, as the chair of that Local Government Commission, very experienced man. He's not going to always be there. But under these changes, Local Government Commission is going to be able to create council-controlled organisations and joint committees as part of the reorganisation scheme. That means that Local Government Commission can decide that there will be council-controlled organisations set up in local government. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that is a decision that needs to be made by local government themselves. I think that the proliferation of council-controlled organisations in many councils has been to the detriment of local councils and to local communities. There is lack of accountability by CCOs. They are people that put on them, most of them, and often there's no elected representative at all, and in fact there is only appointed people, appointed by councils, and they don't have to account back to the public of New Zealand and the ratepayers as to how they spend their money. So they don't have the accountability and the connection with the community that you would expect at a local government level. So allowing the Local Government Commission to decide that they can create council-controlled organisations, I am concerned about, Mr. Speaker. And also them deciding on joint committees. Surely we want local government to look at how they're working, what joint committees that they think they ought to have, rather than an unelected commission making these decisions. So there are some positive things in here, but there are also some things in here that need to be looked at more carefully. I like the idea of long-term infrastructure plans, because we know that local government controls a large amount of infrastructure, more than $79 billion of infrastructure assets, and also they've got an additional $12 billion in land and buildings. So they do need to have long-term plans. But can I say to Minister Williamson, perhaps it would be good if the government had a similar approach to long-term infrastructure strategies and planning, because that's something that we don't have. In fact, I think it was a national government that got rid of the planning commission we used to have when we looked at long-term planning for infrastructure in New Zealand. And so in government, we very much go from one electoral cycle to the next. So while it's a good idea to impose long long-term plans on council, perhaps the government might like to look at itself to undertake something similar. So, Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, I think that they ought to also look at allowing local government to make some of these decisions about how they can lift the bar in improving their own performance. After all, they're the ones that are going to carry out the work.
So I call Nikki Wagner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.